Welcome, everyone. We'll just kind of get this to the first slide here at Demystifying the Content Gap Between TikTok Creators and Film TV Creators. We're very glad that you could join us today. And we know many of you are staying up late or waking up early to watch us from other countries. So thank you very much for joining us. What we want to start off with is a backdrop in how this panel topic came into being. Then we'll do some introductions to the Business of Creating, the Writers Guild Foundation, BloomXO, and then the panelists before going into discussions. But feel free when we get into the discussions, feel free to ask questions throughout in the Q&A. We'll talk a little bit about that. Since we are talking about TikTok, please go on TikTok and sign up, play on it, watch it, post to it, because this is what all it's about. Not this second, but hopefully at the end, for those who aren't familiar with it. But part of this came up to be is because we look at like the question came out was, can TikTok be a pathway for development and creative expression? For either TikTok creators wanting to create for TV and film, or for Hollywood traditionalists to create and test content on TikTok. And to set the stage to help with these discussion topics, the next few slides are some items in the news to kind of give some context behind the panel, for those more of like as a primer of like where things are, and so what we wanted to start off with is what you see on your screen here is more of an infographic on the left-hand side, that shows the overall social media landscape that actually was just done a few days ago and posted on Visual Capitalist. And you can see like how huge the growth and the places where content is created and consumed. And what you'll see very often on the left-hand side is the most recent social media overview with the biggest players like Meta, which for those not familiar with, it was formerly known as Facebook, and they own in that big blue ball, Facebook, Instagram, WhatsApp, Messenger, and have 7.5 billion combined users. Now, TikTok, owned by ByteDance, is in the red ball in the upper right that you see there in the kind of middle upper right, with a combined user base of over 1 billion users. I mean, so these are just huge platforms with users and where a lot of content is being used and consumed, and this is this entire ecosystem. And obviously there's a lot of players that you see, swirling around it, and then the question kind of comes down to is that can it converge with traditional ways of viewing content, like you see in the upper right-hand corner with films? Or even on TV, or, now it's laptops and iPads, and how do you bridge that content gap, between the two worlds? And very often, like the way I've kind of like viewed it as is, for those, I don't know who's fans of Stranger Things, but I kind of liken it to the TV show Stranger Things for those who have watched it. Remember how they lived in one world and then there was also the upside down. And the upside down is like an alternate dimension existing in a parallel to the human world, and they kind of go back and forth. And what is that back and forth? What is that content between TikTok creators and social media worlds versus the traditional cinema and TV? Is there a lot of overlap? And, can there be? And that's what we hope to discuss. As we're seeing what's happened in the news, like here's a Wall Street Journal article. This is a screenshot from it where it says Hollywood embraces TikTok stars for TV film projects. So you see a lot, particularly these ginormous billions of users on TikTok and content created where you have, they're creating content and stars. So you'll see studio executives increasingly hiring talent made famous on digital platforms. It's like Charlie D'Amelio and Addison Rae are two of the most followed creators on TikTok, and they're being profiled in film and TV projects. For example, Netflix paid more than 20 million for the rights to He's All That, which is a romantic comedy starring 20-year-old Ms. Rae, and she has more than 84 million followers, the third highest among all users. If you look at this recent article as well, here you have Hollywood and TikTok, 8 TikTokers who were seen in Hollywood blockbusters. To quote from even the last article, they said traditional Hollywood is really in a weird spot right now because they're seeing TikTokers and YouTubers, becoming more popular than traditional actors and actresses. Whether you agree with that or not, we can debate that. And that is why you see Hollywood trying to figure out how to tap into influencers and be in the traditional film and TV space. And it's interesting to see there is this crossover with acting talent side, from TikTok to film and TV. And one of the things, that kind of came up for me, like was wondering, okay, fine, you see all these examples of talents, like an acting talent, but, what about writers? What about producers? How can you get involved on both sides there? The ones that get the most Press media is acting, but there's this entire ecosystem within Hollywood that's involved. And by the way, there's also another article worth checking out about traditional industries embracing social media. My friend Joe Epstein, who hopefully is watching this panel. So Joe, if you're here, say hello. You told me about this Vanity Fair article titled "Twitter Teaches CEOs How to Make Friends and Influence People." So you have traditional companies like execs using Twitter to create content and share info from that example. So now you have like Twitter stars, going more traditional ways, but then you also have traditional contents and acting like Brendan Fraser, who isn't on TikTok, but he was made famous on it recently by people posting about him. Brendan Fraser has become a TikTok obsession despite the fact that he's been largely absent from the public eye for over a decade. And if you hashtag Brendan Fraser on TikTok, you'll see there's racked up 166 million views with video content from creators like thirsting over old clips of George of the Jungle and praising him for his humble nature and his vulnerability in interview segments. Another example, what you see here is BBC Nativity. What they ended up doing is in 2009, there was this movie called Nativity posted on BBC, and it's now become like a staple of watching stuff online. And so watching holiday content, around the holidays. And this is from 2009, and you see a lot of the kid actings in the bottom left-hand corner. They have also now become, here they were actors and now on TikTok and having quite a few followers and actually creating content on TikTok a bit there. So it's definitely something worth checking out if you're not familiar with Nativity. Obviously, there's like the big name actors like Will Smith and Jennifer Lopez and Fallon and Reese who are on TikTok now and creating content and worth following, but you see more of that traditional side as well. So that's just more to give you the context of like what this panel was about, right? Like it is about what the discussion will be, but we wanted to kind of give some context between social and traditional social media, how the world works on that side, but then also understanding also that more of the traditional side with film and TV. But before we dive into the introductions, we wanted to remind everyone here that, this is a forum for everyone here, so we encourage you to introduce yourself, your name, where you're from, and what you do in the chat section. Normally when Jennifer and I actually host these, and when we have done this before COVID and in person, we'd always say, turn to the person to your right, turn to the person to your left, introduce yourselves, because we're all here to help each other out. And these might be the people that help you in your careers, and maybe something you could help them. In a virtual world, it's a little bit more difficult. You don't have you don't have like name tags on you. So the chat is where hopefully you can introduce yourselves and get to know one another while we're having this panel discussion. And again, it's about making our creative industry stronger. It's really the people here. It's it is a collaborative process and a relationship business. The one thing is that if you do have questions for the panelists, go in the Q&A section. You'll see again on the bottom, there's a thing that says Q&A and there's separate for chat. So those are kind of like two different worlds, kind of the upside down world and not the, Stranger Things, right? But the Q&A is where you'll ask the questions. Okay, so we'll just talk a little bit about Business of Creating. We'll go into then Writers Guild and then Bloom. Business of Creating was co-founded by my dear friend, Jennifer Mangan, who you see here, and you'll get to know a little bit shortly more, and I'll do a proper introduction on Jen. But we really started this and all began organically, really just trying to help out the creative community and getting projects seen and heard, and what we've seen over the years is that these panels have been really changed and diverse from the different types of topics, but it's crossing film and TV and digital. It's getting everything from how to pitch onto film festivals to unit photography to financing production, but it really is based upon what you, the audience really have asked us to kind of see and want to hear about. And so we're really always open to ideas. And so if you have suggestions, we're always open to it. Just reach out to Jennifer and me on that, and we're just always very honored that people join these calls and take part in these and just to learn more about the creative industry and making us all like a stronger industry together. So what I'd like to do next is turn it over to Enid from the Writers Guild Foundation, who we're very, very thankful for always hosting these events with us and these virtual events, and just wanted to kind of pass it over to her for a few words about the Writers Guild, who was amazing.
Thanks, Michael. Hi, everybody. Hi, everybody. Thanks for joining us today. If you're new to the Writers Guild Foundation, we are a nonprofit organization based in LA. And as the slide says, our mission is to preserve and promote the craft and history and voices of screen storytelling. We host events such as this regularly. We'll have a couple of fun ones the top of 2022. So definitely check our website, wgfoundation.org, or follow us on social media to get updates on that. We also operate the library, which is still closed, but we are hosting virtual library office hours, I guess. And that's 2 days a week, Tuesdays and Thursdays, information on our website as well. Enjoy. Thanks for our partnership.
Yes, no, I love it. And if when the library does open up, I really encourage people to be able to see it because it's really incredible. The scripts that they have are just phenomenal on the TV and film side. It's a really incredible resource, and it's also a really beautiful library too, and very cozy. So when it does open up, please go visit. So then what we'd like to talk about next is I'd like to pass it on to Ariel. Ariel, do you want to talk about Bloom XO?
Of course, absolutely. It's a pleasure to be here on behalf of Bloom and to be a part of this Business of Creating and Writers Guild Foundation event. So thank you for having me. To give you a little bit more background about our company, we focus on several elements within the media and entertainment industry as an agency and magazine. So we have headquarters in LA and New York, and we have a variety of teams from events, influencer marketing, research, creative strategy, and then obviously editorial with the magazine and more. So one thing that is going to be kind of a repeating theme for at least our company and within the influencer space is we really try to focus on bringing more dimension to influencer marketing. So, on the content creator side, we've been working with influencers, creators for several years now. And one of the things that we really believe in and understand is trying to find that authentic voice. What does that mean? Our company is all about uniting authentic storytellers. So in the sense of really bringing meaning to that, it means having a unique story to share, to document, and that takes place in many shapes and forms. So we make sure the creators we work with are passionate about the projects they work in and the content that they create, but also seeing how that's evolved is something we'll discuss a little bit later. So we do have an agency and a magazine. We work with many studios on film projects as well. So over there, you can see we had a cover for the French Dispatch and had an exclusive look into the film. We also have a lot of creators that are part of it, including Josh as well. And over there, you can see Chris Hahn, who's a creator we've worked with for several years now. And she's passionate about, motherhood, but also fashion. And there's so much of it is not black and white. It's not in one category or another, but there is this blend of unique personalities. Like we're dealing with human beings that are passionate, and Josh will be able to definitely give you more insight into that throughout this panel because he's gone through it for years to, you evolve as a person too, as a creator. And so taking your audience on that journey has been a huge part of what we do at Bloom. And yeah, we'll discuss a little bit more throughout the panel, but it's a pleasure to be here.
Awesome. Thanks, Ariel. And what we'd like to do is begin here, but let me do a proper introduction to Jennifer Mangan. Jennifer, it's so funny because I was like, what's her title? I was like, it's Friends. She's my friend, so that was the first one. But Jennifer is a writer producer who owns her own independent production company called Beautiful Day Productions. By the way, I love the name, which they focus on materials that uplifts and empowers women through comedy and sci-fi fantasy. After graduating with distinction from UCLA Extension in Business and Management and Entertainment, which I think that's how we met actually, right? That one time, yep. Jennifer co-founded and produced the Women in Film mini upfronts promoting female content creators via red carpet industry screenings of trailers and sizzles for unproduced projects. Recognizing the need for creatives to gain practical advice and guidance from seasoned entertainment execs in order to market and sell their projects, Jennifer co-founded and moderates the panel series Buisness of Creating, which we have here. Currently, Jennifer's sci-fi fantasy television show Animal Magnetism is in development with executive producer Randy Greenberg, who's awesome, who's known for the Meg franchise, A Tale Dark and Grim, and Cowboys and Aliens. And with that, I pass it over to my friend Jennifer.
Thank you very much, everybody. I am so excited to be here and learn from everybody. So diving in, quick introductions. Ariel, here we are. Ariel Sara R is a seasoned media and marketing executive at Bloom XO with a wide array of experience in digital marketing, data analytics, publicity, and editorial work. She's passionate, as we saw, about highlighting stories and bringing people together to celebrate individuality through all the projects she works on. Additionally, Ariel Sara is an alumna of the USC Marshall School of Business and Harvard University. So everybody welcome Ariel. And next up, we have Josh Sadowski, AKA Mama Penny, one of my favorite characters. I have laughed so hard watching these sketches of his. Josh is a comedian, content creator, writer, singer-songwriter, and founder of the Halo House, plus more. Obviously multi-talented. He's passionate about creating characters such as Mama Penny, developing powerful stories, connecting with his audience, and making incredible impacts. His profile, Laugh with Josh, brings together the vibrancy of the characters he creates with the relevance of the surrounding world. And y'all, he's got over 4.6, I read that correctly, I had to double check, 4.6 million followers. I think I need to learn something from this man. All right, and finally, round of applause. I'm so excited, I'm forgetting myself. And finally, my partner in crime is Michael Fisk. Yay, Michael. So Michael, of course, is the co-founder of Buisness of Creating with me. Good fortune is mine with that. He is also a senior marketing executive in the entertainment industry, having spearheaded over 450 marketing campaigns for studios like Sony, Lionsgate, NBC Universal, Warner Brothers, and currently MGM. You may have heard of the whole Bond franchise. I don't know, but that's Michael, everybody. So Michael, he also runs InterMark, the international consulting practice, focusing on helping filmmakers, producers, directors, and distributors with long-term marketing and strategy. His passion is making your passion project succeed. Fun fact, as we just kind of heard, because I blew the secret, his favorite marketing campaigns he's worked on are the last 6 James Bond movies for the James Bond franchise, La La Land, and most recently, House of Gucci and Licorice Pizza. Ladies and gentlemen, let's welcome Michael and our entire team. Thank you, everybody. Okay, Michael, please, somebody help me. What is an influencer and how have they evolved and what exactly is short form content? Give me the short version. So tell me more. Ariel.
Absolutely. So, to discuss a little bit just about how content creators and from a marketing perspective have evolved, there are definitely more niches and actual types of content, So a few years ago, you looked at Instagram content creators, a lot of it, was fashion and lifestyle. Now, with TikTok, there's almost several content categories are there. So if you're passionate about a very specific type of content, such as aviation or a specific type of comedy, it's no longer, just comedy. There's so many subcategories. And that's really given the opportunity for the creators that we work with to create their own categories and create their own niches based on what they're passionate about and forming a community around that. So we've definitely been able to, focus on more of the qualitative factors as well. I think there's been more of, the very beginning when influencers and everything was like very new, people were so focused on the numbers. And it's really more about that. There's so much more that can be done. And the true fit that comes from a brand marketing perspective is finding a voice that aligns authentically, organically. I mean, these are words that are, seen throughout marketing so much, but what does that mean? So it's finding that right fit. And that's completely changed. So with TikTok, there's so much has changed. And passing it on to Josh, like, what would that mean for you in terms of how your role has changed as well?
Yeah, I mean, first of all, I'm so glad I could be here with everyone and I'm excited to have an open discussion. I started making content from home 3-4 years ago. I lived in the middle of nowhere in Missouri, and I was raised in a very musical family. My mom was an opera singer, and I always wanted to be an actor growing up. I loved writing, and social media was the only outlet I really had access to express myself. And I was able to, develop comedy skits and characters. It started out with just relatable content where I wouldn't even have any dialogue at all. And then, over time, I was able to, create these characters that were relatable to different audiences based on people I've interacted with, or even, you know, my own parents or my friends or my family. And you know, that has been an amazing journey. I feel like I've developed my writing skills over the past couple years, and obviously with growth, and you know, I started 18 and now I'm 21 going on 22. I've wanted to evolve as much as possible. And my passion, again, starting out was music and acting. So now that I'm in LA, my focus is really developing my craft as much as possible and learning and educating myself as much as I can to develop that, and moving into music and moving into acting, and mainly production. Because I ran a management firm for 2 years, and we managed 13 artists, exclusively and non-exclusively. And I also started the production company and started a creator house. Kind of did a little bit of everything, and it was definitely a lot, but I love doing it. And you know, it takes time. And my thing is, I've always wanted to reach families, and I've wanted to bring people together, and I've wanted to inspire other people to do the same. And I've been able to do that through my content, and it's definitely been a journey. And I found a good balance in working with larger projects. Like, I think having long-term goals and developing that instead of staying, you know, being stuck in one small category, and developing my skills. So
if I can hop in on that, I'm jumping to the next slide a little bit, even though we don't have it up, y'all. But so you were talking about how you're, you know, starting to develop these characters. Sorry, Michael, that wasn't me being subtle. That's not, that's not in me, you know. But so, Josh, I was wondering, you know, can you tell us a bit more about how you developed these characters, and, you know, how you came about with some of these different things? Because you were mentioning that, and I would love to know more. You know, is it the same as far as developing something for, you know, something, a longer full length show, as opposed to something, you know, a short bite size type of thing?
yeah.
And, you know, how much, you know, again, since I'm coming more from a traditional background, how does that compare when you're getting your locations, when you're figuring out the costumes and all that kind of stuff? What's, you know, tell me more. What's the Venn diagram?
Working from home when it comes to the costumes is definitely a little bit harder. You know, you kind of have to improvise, you know, with the clothing you have, or, you know, if you go online and buy a couple things. And
which towel do you use? You know, do you go with the white?
A nice one from Costco. It's a very nice towel. I have a specific brand. It fits perfectly. It lays well. Definitely gone through different ones. But, you know, I think, like, even with sets and different things like that, that was definitely a huge struggle for me, because I was very picky about my visuals also. Like, instead of filming on my phone, I started filming on my DSLR. Like, I invested in a nicer camera. I wanted to, you know, making those short videos, I was like, okay, awesome. I'm giving someone a good laugh, but where do I have this connection with my audience, where I'm building a relationship between obviously myself and the person who's consuming my content, but also my characters? Like, how do I make someone fall in love with like a character, like you do in a traditional show? Like, when you watch a show for so many seasons, everybody has their favorite character, their favorite actor. How do I do that with short form content? So I started to do longer form, being 3 to 4 minutes, right? Longer form being 3 to 4 minutes, but scripted comedy skits. And so I would have storylines and really try to tie in all the characters. So Mama Penny, I grew up in a household where it was pretty low income. Like, you know, we were always on the road. My mom was in like ministry and she was a singer, and my dad just did construction. And so I experienced what it was like and my mom, she's Latin, and she loved to like go use her coupons and everything. And so I tried to just pull everything out of that I could relate to, that was either frustrating or I felt was funny and other people found, you know, humorous in my family. And I would just tie that into my character. So Mom Penny became a character where she's like, has this son, and, you know, she's always on a budget and she's trying to live her life, you know, having an interesting, fun relationship with him. And Philip is a character where he claims he has a lot of money. He's kind of like that LA, you know, he's got all the money in the world, but he really doesn't have any, right? It's all show. And then Susie's kind of like that Karen, you know, that we always interact with. No shame to anyone who has the name Karen. But and that's why I named her Susie. And no shame to anyone with the name Susie. But, you know, it was just kind of like building those characters. And it took time. I will say, like, with all the characters, it started out where the voices were different, the constant reoccurring jokes, the personality was different for each character. And you know, it's almost like having a baby and watching it grow, and seeing that personality like flourish. And it's been exciting because when I write, I'm able to kind of get in that mindset of, okay, I'm writing for this character. What would this character do when they're put in this situation? And I just started writing and expressing all of that, and it's been fun. And that's kind of how I develop those characters.
Great, because they do seem very three-dimensional. They're very separate from each other, which is really enjoyable to check, because again, it's such a short in and out that you're like, oh, okay, wait, there was a lot more three-dimensionality than you might expect from something that short. So I found that quite interesting, again, coming from a more traditional, outlet, as opposed to the mini bites.
And just to add to that, you know, what I really found exciting about developing these characters, whether it was, because it was also a skill I wanted to develop, you know, if I were to, because I have some scripts and I want to, you know, I want to work on a movie and I want to work on a show. It's like exciting to work on these characters and then work on other characters and see how, if I can entertain an audience consistently for a long period of time with this short form content, I should be able to do that with a longer form piece of content as well. So it's been great to be able to go through those motions.
Absolutely. And to jump in a little bit more, so how much, one of our other questions that we were wondering is, well, how much do you write that is then not used? And is that going to end up maybe, okay, hey, I got that ready for, season 2 or, something else?
A lot actually. If kind of like an example right now, I'm working on some holiday content. And so the series, I'll give a little sneak peek, is I move out because I want to go pursue music. So I'm trying to tie in my music as well, right? Because that's one of my main focuses. So Josh moves out, and then turns out he's like living with his girlfriend, and then she shows up because she has a terminal disease, but it's not actually terminal at the end of the story. And she like does all the holiday decorating, and it's all these interactions. But as I'm writing all this content, it's just kind of like, it's a domino effect. I'm like, oh, well, what if long-term, she decides that she's going to move to LA too, whatever it might be. I start coming up with more ideas, and I end up, the last script I wrote, I ended up grabbing that and writing a totally different series that I'll use in 2 months. And then I actually found more passion in writing that. So then I had to like recenter and be like, okay, holiday content. And right now I'm just kind of putting that in. And at the end of the day, I generally film almost all the lines I write, because it's like, if I'm going to write it and I think it could be humorous, then why not film it? It's an extra, 10, 15, 20 minutes. And then in editing, I generally cut out I'd say about 50% of what I write.
So just out of curiosity, Jenny, I'm just going to ask a question, particularly in the writers, because I know we work with the Writers Guild and we have a lot of writers here too, is when you do the writing, Josh, do you do it, is it just really just on your own and you just kind of put a pen to paper and then you just kind of finesse it there? Or do you actually do lines with others, and collaborate with, or other people? There's a community of people who actually just do the writing as well.
So I've tried writing with other people, and in the past, because like I said, I have had the management firm, but also just I'm very involved in the community, and I'm very blessed to have a lot of creative people around me. And so I definitely bounce off a lot of my ideas or my writing, but I've found that what works for me is when I lock myself in my room and I have 0 distractions and I just write down my ideas. And it's normally, like right before I go to bed, I kind of just zone out, I get into the character, I kind of just visualize. I like to visualize everything, the entire video, the entirety of, the entire series, whatever it might be. And then once I'm satisfied with how the beginning and ending and everything in between works, I just jot it down. And then I actually, I do write it out like a script. So I'll have, scene, each character, the lines, which also makes production easier. It makes production a lot easier once we start shooting. So I a shot list, which I've developed. Yeah, hi Katie. Which I've developed recently. But yeah, that's generally my process. And writing with others, I do bounce off a lot of my ideas, and sometimes I'll do research. Not always, but let's say if I'm doing like I did a Mother's Day skit, right? And so the last Mother's Day video I did was, I think it was like the perfect accident or something like that. Or the Mother's Day surprise. And so I did some research on what it's like to be a single mother, what it's like for mothers to go through, potentially having a kid at a young age, and then grabbing that and then, kind of working it with the character and then writing that out. So I'll do research, but with writing with others, I like to do it solo generally, because I don't love the pressure of like everybody's like, you know, I like to bring something to the table and then discuss it and then come back again. That's generally how I like to do it.
I like how you were saying that you were doing that research, and that kind of ties back in with what Ariel was saying about the authenticity of the voice. So I was like, oh, well, there you go. No wonder you're with Bloom, you know? So how early on are you then collaborating with Ariel and the team at Bloom? Or is that more of a, look, I've already finished everything, here's the pretty shiny package?
I mean, it just depends, like from, you know, we've worked with Josh on some events and other panels and everything as well. In terms of, you know, actual creative production of certain content, it can start really early on. If it is, depending on, you know, what kind of brand it is and the conversations we have is, what is the story here, right? So does it make sense aligning with this creator and making sure that they have their own voice? So a lot of times we have a back and forth to make sure that the creator has their own vision for the, you know, the specific content that is being requested, but also aligning it with the brand voice. And that's why, you know, whenever we talk early on, it's trying to make sure there's a good fit there. Because if you're trying to push two different stories and two different voices, you don't see that. But when you do have it together, there's a lot of synergy and trying to make that voice amplified and to make that message heard to the audience of the creator, but also the brand. So that's something I think it's definitely been evolving. There are a lot of brands that push, you know, this is what we want. And I'm sure that Josh has also experienced that, where, you know, it's just really about bringing those voices together. Like, how can this be a collaboration rather than just pushing something? And that goes both ways. So it's part of the process of, you know, we always talk about in the traditional form of entertainment, there are so many writers and so many collaborators. Well, it's the same with the social digital side as well. There's a lot of pieces that come in, and someone might just see a hashtag sponsored or hashtag, you know, paid ad or whatever, but there's so much creative that actually goes into making sure it's aligned.
I love it. That dovetails into like two of our upcoming slides. Oh, it's so natural. I love this. But so two main things that, you know, my friend has been texting me all day. Don't forget to ask us. Okay, I will ask, you know, but how do you get so many followers? How did that start out? Is that you and Ariel at Bloom? How are you? Yeah. How do you curate them? What's the strategy? How much time do you take? Can we borrow them from you? What, you know, let's get down to brass tacks.
So my experience with building followers, so I also did a lot of artist development with the creators that I worked with. And I even do that now without any type of like my main focus right now, just kind of to add to this, is being in LA, I see a lot of struggles within the community of finding resources, finding people who can help, who have the right intentions. So right now what I do is, if I see someone with talent, no strings attached, I'm here to help you. So, you know, if you need help with developing content, you know, coming up with creative ideas, kind of going off with what Ariel was saying about working with brands, having that authentic voice, it's like there is kind of like a good guideline on how you can build an audience and how you can work with brands. My thing is, I wasn't doing well on social media. Like, I was living at home, 18, and my parents supported me with whatever I wanted to do, but my content wasn't performing well. I studied the algorithm, what was working, what people wanted. And I made a new profile. I posted one video, and I was just lucky, and it blew up. Like, it literally had 250,000 likes overnight, and I had like 50,000 followers in one day. And I was like, oh my goodness. So I started posting every day, and it just didn't stop. And then I started merging into YouTube, and then that happened. And then Instagram was also supporting me through IGTV. And I currently have a contract with them also right now for a series and everything. But it's mainly, I think, about putting out content that is relatable to what's going on with current events and tying it in with your authentic self. And it's the same thing with when you're working with brands. It's like, you know, you have if you're working with a good brand that has an amazing ethos, or they have a lot of different parts of themselves that are marketable, you know, if you're working with a creator like myself who makes skits or is able to produce different types of content that are inspirational, sometimes you have to trust that creator, and like Ariel was saying, is having a collaboration. So now when I work with brands, or when I was developing artists and then developing their relationship with brands, it's always like, you pitch what you know is going to work for your audience, how you're going to integrate it organically into your content, and make someone laugh using the product. It's not that hard. I mean, if you can write a skit and you can integrate something into it, there's fun ways to do that. And so I've been blessed to be able to do that with a lot of brands. Invisalign has been an amazing brand that I've worked with. I've produced a lot of content for them, and their retainer brand Vivera, I just did a video where like the retainers like jump off the counter and they like rescue the relationship. They roll all the way back to the house, and stuff like that. And it's great content, not only to go on my profile, but it's amazing content that brands can repurpose and use if they want to whitelist the content and put it out there for their brand. Because again, it's that collaboration. It should be a piece of content that can apply to my audience and also apply to their consumers. So yeah, that's kind of how
Okay, great. And so
by the way, I love Invisalign. They're great.
It's a sponsor for us too.
Exactly, I know.
We'll have big shiny teeth with our Invisalign.
I know. I needed it.
Yeah. So Josh, a couple of questions, and actually it kind of all ties in together, as we know. So you're talking about doing the brand partnerships. And so I do want to finish a couple of questions we had on that slide about like, well, you were saying you were posting every day. And so, okay, you're still posting every day, but then we also want to know like how, how and when did Bloom XO get involved as far as getting those brands on board and the sponsorship? And, how early are they coming on board? Because Ariel, as you and I had discussed in one of our previous talks, the sponsorship, the ad that you're seeing, the branded content, loved the gum, by the way, that was so funny, Josh, with the date. I was like, oh, so it was relatable and amusing, we enjoyed it. But so we're seeing that lovely little final product, but we're not seeing all of the stuff that went in underneath to create this very enjoyable spot. So give me the background, everybody. What's the business side of that? We need to know business of creating all this stuff.
Yeah, I mean, for making content, so, like I work with different brands, I work with different agencies, I work with different management firms that are on exclusive. The main thing about, like when you're growing your audience and when you're putting out this content, there's a lot that's involved. So there's everything from contracts, negotiation, pitching ideas, discussing the marketing campaigns, and really developing that. I do want to hand over to Ariel because I feel like she'll have something really good to add to this, and then I'll pitch back in.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, you brought up a lot of interesting questions and points, Jen, because it's so dependent on the specific project. Like, I wish there was like a one answer fits all.
We'd have a slide and be like, take a picture, everybody. This is it. This is the magic key.
Exactly. Right. So, I mean, it comes down to really looking at what very early on, the first thing that we look at is what is the goal of the campaign from a marketing like brand perspective. So it starts from, sometimes the goal in terms of more of like metric wise is engagement, or sometimes it's more just brand awareness or brand visibility. So those are some of the things that it starts with. And then it depends on like the creative brief that goes along with it. Going back to kind of the evolution of how this has changed is before, I mean, it was just, okay, how are we going to send this creator like a product, and now there's so much storytelling behind it, because there's obviously with competition, people feel like they have to differentiate. So that's a reason that it's evolved into this stage. But it really starts with a creative brief and understanding, for example, on the film side, since we're talking here more about the entertainment side, it's starting with, who is the target audience of the film? And then from there, understanding what that means, if it's fans of dramas, fans of comedies, and specifically, it goes back into, it's more than the demographics. That was the traditional, now it's about psychographics and personalities. And there's a lot of a deeper understanding that goes into the creative brief and the campaign process. And then from there, there's a lot of back and forth to make sure that from the influencer side that we have the right fit for it. In terms of like Josh collaborating and things like that, I know that Michael and I had discussed this prior to the panel too, but we did have Josh come to the Forever Purge Universal event, which was really fun as well. And again, it comes down to, especially when it comes to events, it comes down to finding the people that would genuinely have fun at these events and experiences, rather than completely like different. Like for something like a horror event, like you're not going to invite like a very lifestyle fashion-y, like rosy dozy type of aesthetic Instagram influencer. So there's just a variety in that aspect.
If I can,
I don't know if that helped answer the question, but
totally it did. If I can jump in to kind of get a little extra clarification, because it sounds very similar to how when you're developing your pitch deck and you're developing your pitch for a film or a TV, you're going, look, these are our comp shows. This is our audience. This is, so it's a lot of the similar understanding so that you can go in and be that self-aware of the project that you're pitching, whether that's yourself or the TV show or the brand event. So I'm appreciating that. Oh, okay, wait, I knew more about that than I realized I did. So fantastic.
Yeah, and just like to add to what Ariel's saying, it's like, because I've worked with a lot of different brands in the past, and when we're like, I'm excited to see how it's evolving, because again, a lot of agencies have failed brands, a lot of brands have failed in campaigns, and sometimes they put too much pressure on the creators, but they don't realize that they're demanding this list of things that are they're not applicable at all to the content, right? And so now I see a lot of platforms, so like Tick-Tock's doing this, Meta is doing that. Like a lot of people are consulting with creators now to put together briefs to make sure that that voice is authentic and that you can feel that through your content. So I'm excited to see that. Like I've been doing that lately a lot. Even Luan, my close friend, she's an amazing creator. She's like working with brands like Coca-Cola and like really consulting with them and telling them, this is what we need from you. This is what we need to make the content that's going to work on our profile, but also feel genuine to our audience. And that's exciting. And then also like kind of touching, because I think you were talking about like, working different platforms. Meta, has Facebook, Instagram, everything. They actually just sent me to the Jingle Ball last week, which was absolutely amazing. But it's difficult balancing out content for Reels and balancing out content for TikTok and YouTube and Instagram posts, Instagram stories. And, when you're doing it all yourself, it can be very overwhelming. And I think that's why, for me, I've like tried to, and I'm currently working on developing a team. Like I'm trying to find someone that I hire for sales. I'm trying to find an assistant that I can hire to help me with my schedule to be able to be more productive. And I think that's something that a lot of creators need to be educated on, is that you shouldn't have to be afraid of building a team around you to be able to do what you do best. And so that's something I've been trying to focus on, and I found like helps a lot, because it's a lot to handle.
Well, then it sounds like it would give you a lot more opportunity than to create the content that you're known for, right? But it was interesting you brought up the point of, and I think Jen and earlier talking about like, you can't, like as marketers, for example, right? Like I remember years ago as marketers, we would literally write down like, here's what you influencer would say, right? And it just never, first of all, the content creators were like, well, I'm not necessarily going to do that. We might have been able to do in the past, but it didn't really come organically and approached. And then it's the audiences that could kind of feel it and sense it, that it's not coming from like a really true place. I thought your example, Ariel, you talked about the Universal Pictures, the Forever Purge. I know, is it okay if I share that link in the chat? Is that okay?
Absolutely, yes, okay. Of course.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, I mean, I was going to say, Josh mentioned this and I thought it was great, is that the more individualization of the creative is something that we're seeing every day more and more. Whereas like with what you mentioned, Michael, to have something where it's standardized and it's almost like the amount of the creators or whoever's on the other side of it can have completely different tone, messaging, audience, and it really needs to be personalized. So to really have the collaboration early on to see what that content looks like, it's really important. And I thought it was fascinating because we've dealt with a lot of those even in the last few months of just trying to kind of, it starts off with a lot of back and forth and communication, but making sure that that is something the audience will actually understand. Because I'm sure Josh knows this too, it's like, if your audience is looking at a post and they know that that's not your voice because they know you so well, sometimes more than you even realize. So, and that's a difference between kind of when you're the topic of this, the difference between like TikTok and traditional is that when you watch a film in a theater, it's, you know, how you don't see the characters every single day. Whereas with Josh and the characters he creates, it's people can click on his Instagram story when they wake up in the morning and when they sleep, and it's continuous, right? The touch points to the audience. So that's another fascinating difference too.
Yeah.
If I can jump back in, there were a couple of things I wanted to get a little more clarification on. So Josh, I love it. You already answered, how are you dealing with the burnout? Because people have been putting in some questions. So yeah, because you're spinning every plate in the line there. So yeah, getting your team and finding those that with whom you can collaborate as creators, you know, thumbs up on that one, you know. And so two other questions that I thought were quite interesting. Do you batch content? So how much do you create at one time and then, you know, cut into the individual episodes? And are you using separate content? Are you changing it up depending on the platform?
Yeah, no, those are great questions. I'm looking at them right now.
Mm.
It's so a lot of people, everybody has their own process. I think everybody individually works in a different way. For me personally, I don't plan my content. For me, it's what inspires me in the moment, because what I might plan out in 2 months, I might not be inspired to create in 2 months. And then I'm not going to make the videos, and then I'm going to be stressed because I don't know what I want to make, and then, you know, trying to fit everything in. I think it's smart, and I do this also, is like planning out, you know, like the bigger picture things. So like, okay, I want this character to evolve in this way. I want to try this style of content in 2 months. I want to try to merge, like for me right now, working on music, and also going to production. Oh, I want to like work on like longer storytelling things where I have myself as a character, as like an actor, and then close friends of mine. You know, it's like doing that. When I prep my content, it's generally a 1 week process. Like I plan out the overline of the script. I'll spend a day or two writing if I feel inspired. You know, it's always on the back of my mind, and then I'll edit it and post it. But every piece of content is different generally. I do like to repurpose my content though. So I will produce and this is what I've been doing, was what has worked for me. YouTube is, thankfully, I'm able to post vertical videos that are only 4 minutes long, 3 to 4 minutes long, and they tend to do really well. And then what I do is I write out the script to make sense as a series if I cut it up. Or if I know that that's not doing well on my channel right now, doing episodic things, I'll write out the content to have like a lot of jump cut humor. So I can just make one video for that, post it on TikTok, post it on Reels, post it on IGTV, post it on Shorts, Snapchat, repurpose that content. And then if there's like an idea, I'm like, oh, this would be a fun like quick video I can make. I'll just, you know, make that and post it and see where it lands on what platform and how it works. But I do like to repurpose my content. I think you might as well, if you're going to work hard on something, you need to definitely find a way to like, you know, just use it to the max and be able to get as many eyes on it as possible. So I've been doing that for a couple of years now. Cutting
Actually, like I love how you're like dovetailing right into my next question. Josh, thank you. So, because what I also wanted to circle back to was, okay, so you had this explosion of followers, and then you kept getting more and more and more because Christmas kept coming, you know, kind of thing. And so as you're building this audience, how directly are you trying to engage to get new followers? Are you also, you know, presumably depending on your followers to say, hey, man, my friend here, you need to follow this guy. And hey, so, you know, it keeps growing exponentially in that degree as well. And then follow-up question on that also is, as you're getting so many followers, does the quality of your follower continue to be an important factor as you're growing? And how do you deal with that kind of a thing?
So I've been pretty blessed to be able to build a pretty strong bond and connection with my audience through my characters. You know, whenever I post, like sometimes I'll take breaks and you know, literally I actually had some fans come up to me a couple of weeks ago and they were like, oh, we're like ready for the next Mama Penny video. And like, that was it was like the fact that they knew that I hadn't posted one in a couple of weeks to me was like incredible. And then like the mom was like, yeah, we sit down and watch. It was a family from Utah. And so then I'm like, okay, like this is amazing. I'm glad I'm able to do this. My main issue I've found right now is I've tried to do different styles of content, and I've learned in the past 2 months from a series I did on IGTV, it didn't necessarily perform the best. And so it was a learning process. I put out great content. I enjoyed it, had fun with it. And now I'm getting back into, okay, I'm putting out more comedy skits, the holiday season's here, New Year's, but how can I find like a healthy middle ground and a happy medium for, you know, the type of content I'm making? And so right now it's like, okay, I want to be able to reach an audience that can appreciate music. And sometimes making that family friendly or like comedy skits doesn't necessarily fall in that. So if they see a cover that I post, it could be a good cover. They're just kind of like, oh, cool. Like that's a cover. Like, where's the skit? Where's Mama Penny? Like, that's always the comment. Like, where's Mama Penny? So
got to do the music with the towel on the head. And then there you go.
Exactly. So like I literally released a song that was called It's the Most Stressful Time of the Year, and I did it as Mama Penny, right? So there's fun ways to incorporate that, but I think like if you really truly want to rebrand, I don't necessarily want to rebrand. I think I want to have like a separate page where I can post stuff like that. I make new channels. So now what I'm doing is I have a separate account that's starting to do well, where I post covers where I don't have to like be stressed, and I just make a separate piece of content. And then I'm able to satisfy both audiences, and then I'll find ways to merge those, you know, those audiences and see, you know, kind of like pull the people who love music from this side and then the people who love comedy skits from this side and try to merge it all into one big brand. And it takes time. It takes time for sure.
Sure. And what were some of your earlier strategies to get all of these followers coming along?
So my comedy skits, relatability helped. So anything that was relatable was doing well. So POVs, you know, Ariel was like, it was like really interesting to hear how you explain this, because you were like, oh, comedy used to be like, oh, the comedy creator, but now you have like the comedy POV creator, you have the scripted creator, you have the vlog creator, like the storyteller, like you have all these different types of creators, and which is amazing. But you kind of also have to find what's trending. So like for me, Visco was like a huge trend, you know, a couple of years ago. And so I integrated that into my content that was already doing well, my characters, my Mama Penny, and that blew up. Like it had like, I think in total, like, I think it was like 50 million views across platforms. I think even more, like it was like 60 million views. And because it was relatable to that. So I think as long as you're following the trends and then finding a way to make it authentic to the content you're already making and make it different, right? So like expanding off of that trend, that's a great strategy to grow to your audience. And then that will allow you to build an audience that will also promote the normal content you already put out. But that's what's always worked for me.
Great. And so to loop Ariel back, thank you, Josh, to loop Ariel back in on that. Ariel, how much do you, as the creative marketing exec, and I'm ignoring that Michael's a creative marketing exec. But so
no, Ariel's the one here.
I'm like, oh yeah, sorry. But so Ariel, how much involvement do you have in growing that audience and growing the followers?
Yeah, I mean, I'd also love to hear Michael's perspective from like a more traditional, you know, part of it as well. But, you know, it really is about kind of it's tapping into the true part of the personality. I mean, we've really seen, it sounds cliche, you know, but really trying to find the true interests of that creator and making sure they can tap into that organically. And this is one of the things I really see as a difference between traditional and kind of the content creator side, is, you know, with what's very traditional, it's constantly going back through notes and trying to fit this certain mold and kind of get through like checkpoints and green light. And with the influencer side, it's more of, you know, if something doesn't work out, it's more of like trusting the content creator because they know their audience best, and going back to like the relatability and what stays true, because you can't tell, like, I can't tell, for example, like someone like Josh or any creator, like, I think you should do this because this is going to do better. It's like he knows his audience best. He's grown and evolved with them. But I think from just more of like, if it's branded content, generally looking at it from what's going to perform better. I mean, our team has, you know, a whole strategy team dedicated to TikTok and understanding the TikTok trends of this week. And, you know, we've put together so many decks and presentations for like studio clients that, okay, within these 3 days, like this is the list of all the things that we found that are TikTok trends that are happening. And these are the ones that like the cast should participate in for like that TikTok page. So from that perspective, you can't really plan too far in advance as well, because as you know, everything is changing. A trend that could have been happening a week ago, people are like, that's old now. And I'm sure Josh is like, yeah, you can't, how many drafts can you keep of like the same sound, right?
No. It used to be where you had 2 or 3 days to jump on a trend. Sometimes even a week, a trend would last a week, but now it's like, oh, this is a trend. I literally, if I want my content to perform well, I have like 3 hours to make this video. If you wanted to do it, no, you literally could be at a coffee shop and you're like, I need to go home and film this because it's the biggest trend and I need to jump on that. So yeah, it's definitely in the moment.
Exactly. And that goes to show you that from like the influencer side, the fact that Josh can just say, I'm going to do this right now is very different from like the corporate side, because there's so many approvals you need. And so what you kind of have to position yourself is planning that in advance. And then when the trends are coming, just being able to go super fast and say like, these are like a few general ones we can hop on within this week. And let's say we're contacting on Monday and like, let's get it up by, Wednesday. But it's true. If you have to participate early on in the trends in order to kind of get that window, if it's too late, people feel like it's stale. So I think from the kind of looking from the brand perspective, it's really important to script that out early on, be prepared to have that back and forth very quickly and not, wait to get to the approval stage, because at that point it'll be way too late.
No, you're right. And I think from like when you look at more traditional with film and TV, it really is the scale. I mean, movies sometimes take 2 years, to be able to do it. Whereas Josh, you're talking about hours, right? It's a very different way of doing it. But I think the interesting thing from like some of the key learnings more like for film and TV is just that ability and willingness of TikTokers to just kind of just put things out there to see what sticks. And kind of finding out what lines work, what comedy works. I mean, I'm always seeing like comedians do this a lot. They're always going out on Twitter and just trying lines, right? Like, and just kind of putting it out there, seeing what works. And, it's kind of like doing the comedy troupe of like when they do like the underground bars and just kind of like just testing out content, right? And that's what it really is. That's what Josh, you're doing, but just in a lot more of a public profile, right? It's not just limited like 15 people in some bar, giving a shot like on a Thursday night. You're actually, putting it out there for everyone and anyone to be able to make content. But it's that willingness. I think it's also that willingness just to be willing to fail, right? Like as you said, there's certain things that you're very proud of, and not to say that it wasn't like it was a failure, but it didn't take off as much as you would want, right? And being able to be comfortable or willing to try that out. I think when you're dealing with, unfortunately, when you're dealing with, TV budgets and film budgets and millions of dollars on the line, less of a so, and there's going to be a lot more, to your point, Ariel, a lot more checks and balances put in there and approvals, right? But I think but again, going back to it, I think there's some things where you can kind of like hopefully try things on the side, to see kind of what works and what doesn't.
We have a couple of really interesting questions that people are asking. So thank you, Lilith and Esther. I'm trying to read and look and everything at the same time. But Lilith was specifically asking you, Josh, if you could tell them more about the algorithm you used to get so many followers so quickly. If you can dive into that a little bit deeper.
Yes. Okay. So the algorithm is so different now than what it used to be. Just kind of like a brief breakdown of like what I studied and what worked for me was long form content on TikTok at the time was working really well. New profiles were being pushed and anything with high resolution was working. So I applied all of that to my content that I already wanted to make, and it did well. And now there are literally so many different opinions on what works and what doesn't work. But what I see that continues to work is like if you're putting out high resolution content but sometimes like the very raw content, works, like just like picking up your phone and recording. I think, algorithmically on different platforms, if we want to kind of break it down to small things, like text is really working, text to speech, really just making that long form content what's relatable. I think is always works. If someone can relate to it, it's generally gonna do well. What's trending? So being aware of what's working currently, applying that to your content, and there are small things like that, text to speech, or using new filters, right, that everybody's using. Those generally do well. Or new audios. That's another thing. The algorithm picks up. If a lot of people are starting to put out this content and it's starting to do well, it's going to continue to promote that. So if you see something that's working, then you should probably jump on that train and start doing it yourself. Whether it's using the audio, using the filter, whatever it might be. So it's about being aware. And it's a lot of work, because it's like, okay, I have to make the content, but I also have to be actively on my phone. And it's like, oh, what about like my mental health, and like not always being in this world of like having to be on my phone 24/7. And it's difficult. It's like, when the sun sets, you've got a new trend going on than when you do in the morning. So it's like, when do I have this time for myself to relax? But I think just not stressing about it is the main thing. Don't overwhelm yourself. That's super important. There's a balance, but also, also making new friends within the space is big, because a lot of friends will be aware of what you're not. Like, I literally could go to dinner and someone's like, oh, did you see this new video where someone did this and that? And I'm like, I didn't. They're like, oh yeah, everybody's doing it. I'm like, I've been on TikTok all day and I haven't seen it. So it's about making friends within the space, like being social and like asking your friends, like, oh, do you know what's trending? Or watching. Oh, here's a good tip. If you really want to see, really being active on the people you follow, like whether it's like creators who are starting to grow or creators who are already doing well, and observing their behavior, because that taught me a lot, even now, like what's working for them, even when they post. So going on a portion of your feed where your friends are posting, and observing that and learning from that, and then applying that to your content, so that hopefully you can be on the explore and also be on your friends' feed.
Absolutely. Fantastic.
Hey, Jen, can I just do one thing? I want to address Nydia's question too, because I think Nydia, you asked a really interesting question. And it's, the real answer is we don't know, because this is more through TikTok. We don't have TikTok as a company represented here to be able to answer that. But I think you bring up a really interesting point, because it's like, how does TikTok in itself get support? And it kind of ties a little bit into, there's this really interesting article that Ariel, you and I were talking about, particularly when you talk about rest of world, talk about even outside Western cultures, and those that are not really seen and being able to be represented properly. And I'm going to share the link in the chat, and you can take a look at it. But they kind of look at what TikTok is really known for, is being able to get really authentic voices out there and the stories. I think, to answer your question, is that, is it worth taking your audience to TikTok? Depending on where is your audience. But if TikTok with, 1 billion people, you're going to find audiences out there, and it comes down to the creation of the content, the quality of the content. As for what TikTok, what TikTok supports or not, unfortunately, that goes beyond the scope of the panel right here, and I think we would love to be able to have one, because we actually reached out to TikTok to see if they'd be able to be part of it. And so we'd love to be able to have that. But what I want to do is like share this article in the link, because it kind of talks about the authenticity of it. It talks about how certain groups of people, particularly India, when you look at from that population, how they actually were able to get a lot of underrepresented voices being able to be heard, and then all of a sudden it wasn't. And I have like lots of discussions about it with other people here. I'm not on this panel, but just overall in the work environment. That if you ever want to talk further, I'd be glad to, and you have my information. But I think you bring up good points. Unfortunately, we don't have TikTok here to be able to answer that mostly, but these are really good questions though.
So hopefully, okay, now we've got another panel planned, future panel coming up. Yep. TikTok will be here. They couldn't do it today, but they were interested in coming in. So I'm going to shift our topic slightly, because I found these to be very interesting questions, Michael, when we're talking about like, okay, so 2 things. Most people, when we're creating the short form content, are short form content creators looking to branch over into long form, like we've seen with successful films, etc., or is that kind of up to the individual? And then kind of on the reverse side of that, for people who are wanting to make like, rip-o-matic trailers and stuff, like here's my 3-minute video, my 2-minute video to show you the tone and style, etc., for the full length film, TV, etc., is creating kind of the TikTok version of it, or, the short form content version of it, is that going to be helpful as a trailer for a full-length show? How do the two, kind of intermix, and what's the best use of people's efforts moving forward with their content? I've stunned you. All. This is fantastic. And that's the panel, everybody. Have a good night. Yes.
Kind of like just my experience, because I produced a reality show. It's more of like I just wanted to document the experience of being a manager running a creator house, being during COVID and everything going on in a separate state, and like creating content, the business side of everything. And we filmed everything for 4 months straight. I hired multiple cinematographers, a director, I was directing, and it was an amazing experience. But we produced this show, and right now we're in the process of editing. But it's like there is this struggle and and this gap between really, I think, creators having resources. Even for myself, I've had to do a lot of legwork to try to connect with people who could give me honest feedback on the show or help me with distribution. It's a whole other world in itself. I've learned that it's a totally different world. But I think there is an amazing opportunity for a lot of creators. Not everyone wants to branch out. A lot of creators are very content and very happy with what they're doing, but there are a lot of artists out there who are wanting to make content like myself that's higher production, longer form. And so being able to partner with production companies or even creative directors, whoever it might be, that can help facilitate that is amazing, right? And being able to get that feedback. And then also for production companies, it's like, if you see an artist or a creator out there who's putting out amazing content, they could either be an amazing director, they could be an amazing writer, they could be an amazing actor, singer, whatever it might be. There's a lot of opportunity to connect with them. And you'll realize that a lot of these creators are very self-sufficient and driven and have developed a lot of skills that can be, very useful. But I think it's just about really keeping your eye open. But yeah, definitely creators I feel are trying to get into different, like even myself, like I'm taking acting lessons and doing everything I can to grow and then see where that takes me.
So I guess my question, I'm Jen, I'm going to jump in and ask a question. So just for Josh, do you want to be in the movies and on a TV show? And the reason I ask that, because sometimes I find like certain creators don't want, because they're like, you have to give up, as Ariel was even talking about, you have to kind of give up, certain creative control, right? Because right now you're saying you write your own stuff, you kind of test it out, but it's really all on your own. And then on like a bigger TV movies, you have multiple writers, it's like producers and directors. And it's like giving up that control, and some don't, and you lose sometimes probably followers, because all of a sudden you're shifting over. But do you find, for you, I know you said you're willing to, do you find that your friends and colleagues within the influencer world, do they have the same goals, or do you see there's like a split between certain people like living in the world that they're in right now versus kind of a more traditional?
I would say that the people that I'm friends with mainly, it's pretty much, sorry, give me 1 second. I'll connect my adapter. I'm going to connect this really quick so I don't, because my cat disconnected the router in the last panel.
Yes, that's right.
I don't want that.
But I think also, just to jump in, like Jen, what's really interesting, for me to hear, and I think also for the audience who's all here, because we have people who are actors, writers, producers, filmmakers, it's like all within the creative process with film and TV is like, part of this panel idea was trying to figure out how do you bridge that gap, right? And it's really interesting to hear you, Josh, saying, you're right now, you don't want to get burnt out and you're looking for the help, for like producers and being able to, or possibly even writers, kind of like helping kind of scale these great ideas, and it's more of what'll be really interesting. I don't know what the answer to this is, but how do we, and hopefully maybe panels like this and people can chat about it and meet each other, is connecting the two worlds, because there's a lot of writers and producers out there that want to keep on doing work and creating great content, regardless of whether it's TV and film, but also taking great ideas from TikTok and Facebook. But also I also hear very often influencers are like, but you're basically Josh, kind of confirming something that or basically saying something that I used to think, is that I always thought that you always want to just do it on your own, but in a way you're open to the collaboration, from others to be able to help out, and getting those two worlds together.
Yeah, no, very, very much so. I find that a lot of the people that I associate with and a lot of my friends, even the creators I was managing, like Ace, just part of the Bloom magazine as well, Ace Cross Crook. She started out as an actress and didn't have too much success in that. And, social media was a great outlet and she had just started, and I helped her, and she acts in all her videos. And so I feel like a lot of creators are looking to expand. I mean, the reason I got into even making content on social media is because I wanted to, act in a show or be a crazy character in a show. Do you know what I mean? Like express myself that way, or move into the music industry, which is what I'm working on as of right now. And then I also learned I love producing. Like I love putting teams together. I love throwing out ideas. And sometimes I don't want to have, if I have a good idea or I want to work on teams, sometimes I don't want to have to do all that. Like I started a production company and it can be a lot of work having to run a team. And sometimes you just want to be a creative in a room and just be involved in projects. And, even if it's like short films, whatever it might be, almost every creator that I'm friends with is in an acting class or is working even in like film festivals and things like that, which is amazing to see. Unfortunately, just like in anything, like in mainstream or, a lot of creators want that. It's not necessarily, if you're not the best at it, it's something you can develop, but it's like, if you have a passion for it and you're working for it, and like it can happen. And so I've seen a lot of creators have a lot of success, and I've seen a lot of artists use social media to promote what they do, or be an escape for them. Because also what's very sad, and I've seen it firsthand in the film industry, is the rejection every single day. The amount of times you're told no is painful. And like secondhand, I've seen a lot of people go into, deep depression or like second guess themselves. And social media has allowed them to express themselves with their art and grow from that. And it's almost like a really just a breath of fresh air. And so it's exciting to kind of see how creators are growing in that, and also other artists are using social media to express themselves. But to like kind of fill that gap, I think it's, if a production company or a network or whatever it might be sees potential in an artist, it's as simple as reaching out, and you better believe that creator is going to want to be involved. Because a lot of creators don't have the help, or they're a part of, if I'm being honest, they're a part of these management firms. A lot of creators are signing to these management firms where their main focus is social media, and they do not care about the artist development. They'll make them sign 360 deals. They're like, oh, we'll develop you as an artist, but we just want you to keep posting TikTok videos because that's what's going to make us money, right? That's been the biggest issue I've seen too. And so a lot of creators feel stuck. They feel afraid to even grow, even if they have the potential or they have the talent to do it.
Josh.
Definitely. One thing I just wanted to really quickly say it's interesting. One of the other panels that Josh was also on, Johnny was also on. It was a studio panel we did, and Johnny is part of Josh's TikTok house. That's amazing. And he was mentioning something I thought really resonated with this topic. He was mentioning that he came to, really passionate about acting and to come to LA from, I believe, Texas. And he mentioned that they had asked him or something, if you get like a big movie or something tomorrow, like, will you stop posting on TikTok? And he said, I would love to act. I would love to do these traditional opportunities, but I'm still going to be posting on TikTok every day because that's something I love to do. And it's part of who I am. So I think that there's definitely room for space for both of these in a way that allows the creator to also be authentic to their audience and the things that they want to do. Because again, it's that access to your audience that's at the, at the touch of your fingertips. You can just post something and connect with them. And it's when you've built that relationship over years, it's really meaningful. It's not just, oh, this is like it's just a business or whatever. It becomes personal as well.
So well said, literally so well said. And that's 100% accurate.
And that's the panel. No,
no, exactly. Well, yeah. So I know we've had a lot of questions asked and answered.
Michael, sorry, I want to jump. I'm so sorry. I want to jump in real quick, but actually with a question, because a couple people have been asking the same version of the question, which was, okay, here we have screenwriters, we have, directors, et cetera, in the audience, and they're saying, well, how do I get in touch with either, not Josh, not necessarily specifically you, pardon me, but, either a creator or perhaps, one of the agencies, or so that they can also be on the team to help collaborate and create the content, whether it's for a scripted series for an influencer or for a brand or etc.
Yeah.
And what's the right process?
Yeah. I think it's definitely a lot easier for a production company or director, whoever it might be, to reach out to a creator than a creator is, easier for, because a creator generally doesn't know who to reach out to. Like, even for me, I'm like, when we produce the show, I was like, how do I, even right now, like, we're editing it, and then like once it's fully edited, like, what do I do for distribution? Like, I literally, it's like I have to find a team, I have to find someone. It's a lot to learn. Yeah. But it's a simple, every single creator, almost every single one, has an email in their bio. They have an email in their bio, Instagram DM. You can just send them a text. Hey, are you interested in this opportunity? And 90% of the time, the creator will want to jump on a quick, 20, 30-minute Zoom call and, hear out the idea, and you can go from there. I mean, that I've had a lot of people reach out to me for projects, and a lot of like Flight House is an example. They're like they're owned by Create Music Group, but they do a lot of content. And so they reach out to creators. They work with creators also because they're like kind of an agency, but they reach out to creators for content all the time. And I've, been featured, Johnny and I have been featured on their thing. And, we did like a little Halloween acting show that they fully produced. And I've reached out to creators also for another project I'm trying to work on right now. I'm just like, hey, are you interested? This is like what I've done in the past. And, I'd like to potentially have you involved and keep you in mind. And, even if we host auditions for it, like whatever it might be, like it's very simple just to reach out, and you'll find that the response will be really, really good most of the time.
Okay. And should people have kind of more specifics in mind? Like, hey, I'm noticing you're doing this character arc for, Philip or whatever, and show the familiarity like they would for kind of any other job audition, basically.
Yes, 100. I will say this, you will definitely get a lot of solicitations as a creator, is like, even from brands, like, hey, what's up? I'm John. I'm working on this project. There's like no information there. So definitely like send, it's like, oh, I'm working on, I want you to promote my brand. Okay, awesome. What's your brand? Like, can you send me the link? I'd appreciate a little more information. But yeah, no, just making sure you have an outline of what the project is and how you see this person fitting into that project. And if they're interested, they're going to reach back out. Kind of like sending over your resume, or a spreadsheet or a doc that kind of has a breakdown of everything that you're working on with any links and stuff you've done in the past.
I definitely agree. And I think that, in today's age, it's so much of it is showing your work. And like, if there's any kind of portfolio you have, even if it's not perfect or anything, just being able to share that with people that you think would be interested. And at the end of the day, in our connected world, like, you can DM and email a bunch of people that you think would be a right fit. And if it's a good fit, it'll happen just naturally. And at this point, everyone is on their email every day for hours and hours, especially with COVID. So I one thing I really admire about Josh as well is he's very just in touch and connected with many people outside of just, comedy or just whatever he does. And that's a really remarkable thing to do just in any field that you're in, is just try to connect. And you never know, maybe it's in 2-3 years that there's a potential thing to collaborate on. You don't know, but just trying to connect with people in a similar industry or anything at all is great.
It's super important, because like, if I have like my interest is in music, and my fear, like a huge fear of mine was, okay, like I'm not a producer. I do write and I do sing, but I don't have anything to show. And I know I'm a good singer, but it's like, I'm scared to like be like, hey, do you want to get in a session with me or anything like that? So, lately I've been just like reaching out to artists, and I'm like, I love your music. Can we get coffee sometime? And, I'll show them like a demo of a song, and next thing you know, they're like, oh my God, like, let's like work together. And I actually have a session next week with an artist that is represented by an amazing team, and she's extremely talented, and she's excited to work on my project. So I think it's just about being a friend and being, looking to also see where you can help other people too within the industry, because a lot of artists who like, actors, they want to know how to do social media. So, exchange that, those traits and work together.
Well, I know some people's, DMs are going to be blowing up tomorrow, or probably even tonight, right? Yes. So Michael, do we have any other, well, we had a couple of resources, but I am aware of the time, and yay, I'm glad you have the link
Yeah,
ready.
you can take a screenshot of this
Mhm.
if you're interested, because for those, I mean, we talked a lot about TikTok. In case you are not on TikTok, get on TikTok, you know, and you'll see what we're talking about. There is the support of TikTok, and thanks to Ariel, we have the BloomXO site, and also the example we put into the chat, you know, with the Forever Purge, which I think is a really great marketing example of how the studio and content worked with influencers, you know, to be able to help cross promote. And then obviously follow Josh, obviously. And then I think, Jen, do you want, yeah.
Let me take it from here. So yes, ladies and gentlemen, I'm sad to say this is about almost the end of the panel. Don't log off yet because we got a special quasi surprise. You know what it is if you've been to our panels before. So obviously Writers Guild Foundation, Enid and Kat, oh wow, thank you, thank you, thank you. Wow, our home, you know, while we're at home. So we couldn't do it without you guys. Ladies and gentlemen, dun, 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 final draft. Yes, that's right. If you take our survey to tell us hopefully how fabulously we did, that link is going into the chat momentarily. Thank you, Michael. So, hey, look at that. We have 4 downloads to give away, but you have to fill in the survey, you know. So, ladies and gentlemen, that is what we are doing there. And everybody, yes, follow us. Hello, here we are. Look at that. We need to get our own TikTok channel. We're going to have, Michael, we're going to have to edit, you know, 3-minute videos.
I'll let you be the celebrity on that one, Jen.
Yeah. So ladies and gentlemen, we're on LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok. We will be soon. Of course, our website, businessofcreating.org. Please, if you are not already on our mailing list, please get on our mailing list. 2022 is going to be amazing. So Ariel, Michael, Josh, Writers Guild, thank you. Thank you. This is as close as I get to speechless with all this information. My brain is so beyond full. Thank you, thank you, thank you. I cannot wait to collaborate with you guys in the near future.
Yes, and thank you for moderating, Jen. Loved it.
I learned the most. I'm so glad we record these so I can watch them again as well and write down all the notes now.
Thank you for having us. It's such an honor.
Thank you.
It was great to see Ariel and great to meet you, Josh.
Yeah.
All of you had an amazing time, and hopefully, you know, we're able to give some good info, and I learned a lot too. So
awesome. That's all. That's what we're all about.
All right. Thank you, everybody.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Happy holidays.
Yes.
Happy holidays.
Happy holidays.